Big Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Back with the lovely Danielle Diva, and this time we're going to talk about more stuff from the folklore, legend, and probably fact of Europe, the dark past of that area around the Balkans, where you've got cool names like Transylvania, Carpathia, and, well, other parts of Romania. And we're going to be talking about Romania. Of course, it's notorious for Transylvania and Dracula and the vampires, blah, blah, blah. And it shouldn't be. Yes, there's vampires. If vampires actually exist, there probably
Yes.
could be some there, but they're not overrun with them. You're not like booting them off the doorstep in the morning so you can go out to work. You're not like opening the mailbox and a vampire flies out. There's not that. But what there is a lot of, and I got clued into this by a friend of mine who was an exorcist, and he actually did some work over there in Romania. And he said, you know what I noticed? They lock all of their doors and bar their windows as soon as the sun goes down. And if you beat on the door, yell, scream, whatever, they're not opening it. They don't care. So there's something out there at night that's pretty dangerous. And there's a lot of legends about werewolves. I don't hear anything about vampires, but this werewolf thing is all over the place. So perhaps you could shed some light on that.
First of all, I want to say thank you, Duke, for having me here back again. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you and with your listeners and with your viewers because we have such a blast and we touch many amazing topics. So thank you again for, having me on your show. It is a pleasure. But, let's start. Werewolf in Romania, all around the Europe, myths, legend, or the truth. So I'm going to touch a little bit on that subject. I'm going to mention a little bit about vampirism or about vampires, but it's kind of a little bit overlapping when it's coming to this kind of story. If you talk to the Slavic culture and the folklore, there's many stories about shape-shifting creatures. For you guys, you talk about them when you go like, okay, I did see a shapeshifter and a Skinwalker ranch or, around the Frog Ranch or somewhere else in the woods. But they're really common in the Europe. Did you know that, Duke?
Yep, that's where a lot of the old legends all come from originally, from those dark and spooky parts of Europe. But people have strange accents.
Yes, so a lot of those stories are about, werewolves, Vikodlak. So I'm going to say Paikolit or Varolak. They're actually coming from the areas of Carpats. So Carpats, it's like a Rockies, really big, heavy mountains that are coming all around and down to the slopes, through the Balkans and the Europe.
As I mentioned earlier, the Carpathian Mountains. And,
Yes.
as soon as you mention that name, that for a Western audience conjures up images of, coaches, horse-drawn coaches, and dark moonlit nights, and big
Yes.
castles on the horizon, and vampire bats flying around with
Yeah.
screaming humans that they're carrying and stuff like that.
True, like we can imagine many things, but they are really actually beautiful, powerful, and there's many stories that come around basically these mountains. And the reason why, because there's many different shape shifting creatures around that area, especially before that was just a myth and a legend. But myth and legend still exist around that area, and basically villagers and many small cities that are around that area, they're still locking their doors. They're still actually, after the sunlight, putting the garlic on their windows. They're using something that we call the nana or a sage, or on English, or kadula, that would be protecting that area. And like we know, I am going to mention Transylvania, is also hidden gem of the Europe. It's very beautiful because of the nature, because of the, beauty, architecture that is built there. But it also has a lots of different legends and creatures that are, again, connected to that area. As much as is connected to my great uncle, Count Dracul, is also connected to something that we called Vukodlak or Vikodlak, or the werewolf on English, or you guys for North America, here Canada and United States, you guys call it a dogman.
I don't
was
call it that. I don't think they're the same thing, but go ahead.
I think they're very similar. I think probably that they're still shape-shifting creatures that are
There's the difference. Dogmen don't shapeshift.
okay. There
They're
we go.
dogmen 100% of the time.
Oh, so they're 100%. So there we
They
go.
don't shapeshift. They're just like Bigfoot.
Okay.
They stay the same form.
So that's then the big difference. Then the
Yeah,
uh,
that's why they're
uh,
not a were creature. A were creature, a wereboar, a werewolf, a werebear, a were penguin, were platypus, whatever, always means that it's got a human form and it's got an animal form, a jackal were, a hyena were. They're both forms, and there's some, in a lot of cases, an intermediate form where they
mhm,
take on characteristics of both beings. They are shapeshifters.
shape.
Skinwalkers are shapeshifters with, solely through black magic. And a lot
Yeah.
of the shapeshifters that are humans that start out as humans and are shapeshifters, that's how they're doing it. But the dogmen don't change shape. Like
Mm-hmm.
the cynocephaly don't change
Okay.
shape.
Great. So something that we can all learn today, and that's what I'm saying. Duke is like amazing book of basically knowledge and wisdom, and that's why I love doing these shows with you. So Vukodlak or Vikodlak or werewolf is something that we do have in Europe, and it's quite common all around the Europe, especially around the Balkan area and around the Danube. Like I was saying, it all started actually because of these wizards or these people that were practicing the dark craft were capable of tapping into a different basically dimensions just like aboriginal people did, and they're capable of shape shifting. That usually shape shifting, just like you see in the movies, does happen during the full moon. Also, this is very common when you have a male, and many people even up to today, they have only one boy, they'll call him a wolf. And the reason why, especially in Germany and around that Europe, that area, in Austria too, it's like to protect him against the evil. It's like a wolf. He's strong, it's powerful. Nobody is going to touch him. But if we talk about Varkolak or Vikolak or a werewolf, they're actually very common. They go for their victims, and they go very, in a target way. So they do target their victim for probably a couple weeks before the full moon will come. Usually, they like to attack small children because that's an easy prey. Pregnant women too, and sometimes young men. But usually, they like the easy prey because that way it's easier for them to escape. Also, another thing that people don't understand, that even up to today, we do believe in werewolf or Vikodlak in all that area. Just recently, in 2019, around the Danube, there was actually in Bulgaria, Serbia, and Romania, there was attack of the werewolves who was actually stealing the sheeps, and he started attacking the small dogs and the children, and he ended up on the news. And the story was written by Dragan Petrojevic, and he was the one who wrote the whole story and actually reported to the local news. And in October 30th, 2019, so that's just recently, Duke, that whole area was panicking what to do. But this is nothing new, because in 1582, Peter Suba was the first one. He was a rich farmer, and he was basically transforming, and he killed his daughter and his sister.
I remember hearing about him. Where was he at exactly?
He originally comes from Czechoslovakia. At that
Okay.
time, it was Czechoslovakia, like together. And
Right.
it wasn't separate like Czech and Slovakia like today. So basically, he ate him, and they didn't know how to explain this, and they said he was mentally insane. But up to today, of course, there is some times when we have to mental issues, and there's some cannibalism and etc. But this was still unproven story. And then shape shifting happens usually when we have a dark magic going bad, or the wizard trying to change the shifts and rule over the villages or over the cities. Another thing, I don't know if you heard about that, but 1521, it was also the first attack in France. So it started spreading all around Europe. And
was that Beast of Gévaudan, or was that a different
yes,
one? Okay.
yes. Uh,
Now, I'd like to point out at this point, before we get drift too far
Please go
away from
ahead.
Peter, the Czechoslovakian who started this whole thing,
Yes.
or at least that's the oldest report we can find easily.
Yeah.
If up in the country that you're in right now, this happened and you went mental and ate your family, you wouldn't be accused of being a werewolf. You'd be accused of being a Wendigo.
Yes. That's
So
the
it
thing.
has a lot to do with the lens of the culture that you're
Yes.
looking at what kind of label is getting slapped on this behavior. But the other thing is here in North, let's compare and contrast for a second before you go on to the European thing.
Please go ahead.
We know way back from ancient history and all the way back to the biblical times and up into medieval times, we have all sorts of texts. Marco Polo and other people have mentioned the cynocephaly, the dog-headed people.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't shapeshifters.
No.
They were just dogmen. Okay.
Yes.
So apparently there are those things, and that's dogmen.
Yes.
In North America, there's not only those things, there's the shapeshifters, like the Navajo have the Skinwalkers.
Yes.
Those are shapeshifters. They're evil. They use black magic in order to gain these abilities. And they'll even tell you when they're in shapeshifted form, most of the time they're not there. It's an astral projection that makes you think they're there, which is why you could shoot at them all day long and it doesn't do anything to them. And then also it's mentioned that if you know who it is and you say their name to them out loud while they're in that shape, it'll kill them.
Yeah.
So weird stuff there. And then the other thing is the class of warrior dogmen here in North America, which is a different thing. Those giant ones that are like 12 feet tall, where'd they come from? And they are bulletproof and they're physical. Bullets bounce off. What's up with that? Way long time ago, we were having a war with the giants in North America, and we were losing.
Yes.
And all the powerful witch doctors got all of their best warriors from each tribe together, and they used all their magic powers to turn them into warrior dogmen. The problem here is that they couldn't turn them back again, and they don't shapeshift, and they don't age. Yeah. So after the giants were wiped out, they were kind of a problem having them still hang around. So a lot of them got put in the other space. They can go through a portal and come back out again, but only during the full moon. Yes. Other ones are connected to the mounds that the giants' kings were buried in, because they also have portals in them. And the medicine men knew that in the future those portals could open and those giants could come through again. So guess who's right there waiting for them to come through? The warrior dogmen that they have bound into those same places. And they're free to come out during the full moon and roam around, but then they go back again. So when you start seeing 12-foot dogmen, don't waste your time shooting at them.
You're not good. Nothing
won't work.
No. Nope. Exactly. And just like you're talking, the Wendigo or the Skinwalkers, they're really similar to the werewolves that we do have in Europe. Many people don't know, but there was especially during the medieval times in Europe, this was actually the era of witches, basically hunt on the witches, black magic, crafts, right. Werewolves, vampirism. It just was all over the place.
Where the grim fairy tales came from. Exactly. And the originals really were grim, kids.
Exactly. And many things did stay hidden because the church didn't like the things to come out and scare the locals, or if they lost the battle, let's say the creature escape or that wizard escape, they didn't want them to know. And the reason why, because that would be like the church is losing the battle over the evil. So still, even after medieval times, we're in 2023, the stories are still repeating. I don't know if you knew about, there is something that is called Wolfsegen. And Wolfsegen, it means evil spell. And that's done in Germany for quite a long time, and in Austria. So this evil spell would be actually tossed by basically, or the spellcraft would be done by the Vizardi, will be a male. And basically what would happen, he would change the shape and he would become a werewolf. And there was a gentleman by Thomas Hessinger, he was 84, who promised his soul to the devil. There's many people that he killed inside of that area in Germany and in the Austria, especially in the Alps. And basically during that time, they called the church and they didn't know what to do. And finally the church caught him. As the church caught him, Thomas admitted that he promised the soul to the devil. And that's why he was capable of doing this shape-shifting and everything. Another thing,
wasn't he given like a hide of a wolf or something that he was using to facilitate this?
I personally think there was more to the story that many people are saying. He was in one way supported by the, basically, they can say, local clergy, right. Even if that would be wrong for them to do at that time, but they were really interested to know about this power inside of this kind of craft, we should say. So he was given all different kind of stuff to play with, and even protection. But when all this evil and all this power went out of control, they started hunting him for quite a long time. And when they captured him in the Alps, they actually tortured him for a long time. And finally, he admitted he changed the shift, and he actually basically he actually admitted that he sold the soul to the devil. But then also, even up to today, Duke, we do have very special dances, prayers, and pasms from the Bible that are given during the full moon and before the full moon, so that evil will be, away from the families, away from the sheep, away from the livestock. So that's practiced even today. And the reason why, because even up to today, we do have attacks happening, especially like I was mentioning around the Danube. Now, many people are mixing this up with vampirism. So vampirism, or vampire, or Dracula, but it's totally further on from meaning of it, but vampire is original, or Nastaratu, what would be on the Latin. It's totally different, because these are the different creatures. They are creatures that come from the dark souls, dead souls that are walking alive again, and they're feeding on undead souls. To kill this kind of, let's say, a vampire, the person who does do the shape shifting, you have to cut their head off and put it between their legs, and then, use the holy water. And all of this needed to be done with the priest and with the clergy at a special time. And the reason why, because he may rise again and he may hunt people again.
And that's one of the things Hollywood likes to get things completely wrong, and they're all like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you jam a wooden stake through its heart, it'll explode into dust. No, it doesn't work that way. Why'd they put the stake into its heart? That wouldn't kill it. They put the stake into its heart to pin it to the coffin so it couldn't struggle and fight back while you're cutting its head off.
Yes. And strigoi.
The strigoi.
So Strigoi. It's a troubled spirit and becomes invisible, drain blood from the victims, and living victims, of course, the humans that are alive. So this is totally opposite to what we see, like you're saying, in Hollywood stories. And it's very common today. I had a person who contacted me. I'm not allowed to say the person's name. And he said, I had my uncle who was a strigoi, and he was hunting the entire village. Oh, and I was like, how did that happen? I did ask, and he said the reason why, because he actually promised the soul to the devil to give all these powers, and basically after he gains these powers, the soul becomes immortal. And then you feed, so the dead soul feeds on the living souls. Sometimes they would steal the children again, because that's very easy. They love to attack the pregnant woman, and they're saying the reason why, because the blood and the way of the hormonal level and everything, it's inside of the female, it attracts them. So it's almost like they're killing double, not one, because there is a human life beating, and they love that. So they're
If
really
there's a psychic vampire angle to it, that would also make sense because they've got two energy forces to feed on there in one body instead of just one.
yes, yes, yes. So exactly, I respect what you're saying, Duke. So many people, when they think about, strigoi, and we are thinking about, verolak or vukodlak, they mix those things together, and those things are totally opposite. To kill a werewolf, it's totally opposite than killing a vampire. First of all, there's no stake going through the heart. There's no taking the heart out. For the vampire, you actually have to cut the head off, put it between the legs, and it has to be done in the middle of the daylight. It has to be done with a priest. So there is a blessing of the casket, blessing of the ground. So when this is all, done and the ground is put above the casket, so the spirit doesn't come back together. So this
You know
is
why they have to do it during
yes,
the day?
yes, yes.
Because, that's when it immobilizes the vampire. First of all, if you try and dig up their coffin at night, they're probably not in it, and they're
No.
just going to whip your butt and throw you in the hole in the ground after they drain your blood. But I'm assuming they're even in the coffin. As soon as you open the lid, they wake up because there's no sun to keep them immobilized. So there's the sun reason on that whole thing.
Yes, and they're creatures of the night. And I will say it again, noćni život or noćna ptica, so that it means bird of a night or a night life, but not like a bars and clubs. We are talking totally a different nightlife, no bars, no clubs. It's totally opposite of that. So the folklore and the legend, Duke, believe me or not, is still alive. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
That's
Mike.
why I brought that up because this isn't like very common knowledge or anything, but every so often you get these reports leaked out from there from people that have either been over there or that live over there and usually want to talk about this sort of stuff. But guess what? This is going on. I'm like, well, I'm not entirely surprised, but that's very disturbing.
Yeah, and the truth, what is, many locals are also very scared to talk about it because if they talk about it, I think they're going to bring these bad spirits upon their home by mentioning the names of these vampires or werewolves, stirgoi around their house, especially if they have small children or there's a pregnant woman inside of their house. So they'll be really, they do special braids. So the woman would braid their hair. So mine is in a ponytail, but they would braid their hair. And as they braid their hair, they would do the prayer and they would put the like a special, almost like a special leaves that grow there. It would be like a sage. We call it nana or kadula. So you would put it inside before you go to bed, especially during the full moon. The holy water would be always around the house. And I know that's the only thing, but it's correct inside of the whole. It's garlic. Garlic would be always on the windows or on the doors to protect the families against these horrible shapeshifter creatures and basically awakened dead creatures coming and killing their loved ones. Recently, in 2020 and 2021, again, around Transylvania and around Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, and further on, there was all different kind of attacks of vampirism. And there's actually, I love when you're going to show that because I'll send you that so you can show it to the viewers. There's even the casket as they did a prayer. There's a shape of a skull. You can see the teeth and everything. And there's an Orthodox priest. So the priests are there. This is not done by Hollywood, by hocus pocus. This is originality, what really did happen. A lot of times this end up in the news, in the local news, into their own national news. And the reason why, because this is part of their life and part of their culture for thousands of the years, even before the Christianity. And to kill the werewolf is totally opposite. First of all, you must, to kill a werewolf, you must be a Christian. That's number one.
Yes.
Yeah, and there you go. You do the check marks now. The second thing, they always say somebody who can shoot really well if they're gonna use the gun.
Yes.
And yes, and it must be with the silver bullet. And the silver bullet is because the black craft that is used, just like we know the witches, they don't like silver. So the wizard and the witches that did use this black craft upon basically this shape shifting, it's the silver bullet that would break it apart. So it must be used by silver bullet. And
What if
another,
it's a hollow point silver bullet filled with holy water?
I never heard of that, but maybe try it. I don't know. You know, maybe it can work. You never know. And another thing that, again, many people don't know that, but when the werewolf is killed, it usually changes the shape of that person. So it's back to the shape.
Normal human shape.
Yeah.
Same thing reported to Skinwalkers in those rare occasions where they managed to actually kill one of them in the process of doing its perfidious, nefarious, and evil acts. That, yeah, it turns right back into a human again.
Yeah, and that's when many villagers and many people get really scared because, for example, let's say that and that person, Sammy, for example, I'm just going to make up the name, is accused of that. And now really, as he was killed, they see that shape-shifting is happening again, and there's a human being dead in front of them. You know, they will realize actually this was that person. Again, even if he or she was killed by the silver bullet, another ritual is usually done. That's when the heart has been taken out. When the heart has been taken out, you know, it's usually burned, so you have to burn it down. And another thing what people also did, it's actually to take the body and toss it in a river and toss it in stones. And that's what many of the, for example, witch hunters did, because they say that they would never come back and, basically come and raise from the water. But
well, for the vampires, again, that's very common throughout
yes.
legendary on them. That's where one of the very few things that they do usually get right. They can't cross running water.
No.
And there's other evil spirits that also can't cross running water.
That's true. And another thing what people don't know, but werewolves and basically the vampires or vampires cannot be seen in a mirror. So because we have a dead soul doesn't have that energy to reflect in a mirror or in the screen, just like you and I are doing it right now. So it's different because they cannot reflect in the mirror.
I'm wondering, has anybody gotten any videos of Biden recently with mirrors around him? I'd really like to see.
I don't know. I'll check that.
I'll have to check the internet on it. Sorry to keep interrupting. Go ahead.
It's okay. I watched recently him talking about the ice cream in a White House. He's obsessed with the ice cream. But anyway, I was laughing. I'm like, is there anything more important to talk about than the ice cream? But he was talking.
Hell no. World War III is coming up. Give him his chocolate ice cream enema.
Yeah, he loves the chocolate ice cream. That's the most important thing. You know, anyway, if that's keeping him happy, there we go. So basically, so the werewolf cannot be seen in the mirror. No, neither does vampire. And the reason why, because of their energy. That energy cannot be reflected in the mirror. And another thing what people would do a lot of times to protect themselves would also carry a small mirror. So they would have like a small mirror around their neck so that they would reflect that bad energy away from them. If that mirror breaks, that also means that there was a negative energy around you. Somebody was trying to put a curse or a spell on you. And that's how does it go. And another thing that I'm going to show it to you because I have it on me.
Sweet.
Yes. So it's a really red thread. As much as you have it in Kabbalah, anybody does know Kabbalah, we have it too. So this red thread, it's taken to the church and it's blessed by the holy water. And then it's tied 3 times in the name of the Holy Spirit, Son, and everything, and then Father, and then it's tied. It's tied by the mom, by the, usually by somebody who's really close to you. And then after that, at the end, show it again, you have So you have the, so that's a special stamp. It's like it's basically almost like a wax, but that's not a wax that it's made, that we burn like a, it's like a wax that combines the things together. And it's really made inside of the church, as you may in the frescoes and icons. So when it's that tied, they
So
put
what
that,
is it, like holy glue or something?
something like that, and you cannot break it. There's no, I'm pulling it, you cannot break it. And
Mm.
what does it do? It's actually protection against the evil eye, against Vindigo, against the vampires, against the werewolves. This is something, for example, I do live in Canada and I am proud Canadian, but having that background in me, I still believe in that. And as you can see it, it's been on for me for a while. And and the reason why it's been run through the culture, through the entire Balkan culture and most Europeans, is because they said negative energy is always around us. And I actually did find that out so let's say, Duke, somebody is really, you're doing an interview right now and somebody is really wishing you bad. They want to hurt you. They want to harm you. By my belief, I'm just saying by my belief, my holy thread will protect me, and that negative energy will go towards to that person. So it's like almost the way that it's running, and also is believed as you are in the woods and you are, let's say, you are near the vampires, near the werewolves, Bigfoot, for example, if that he will feel that energy of the church and Christ themselves and protect you. Of course, that's something that I believe in and I'm raised with, so that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. And then it's very similar to Kabbalah, because Kabbalah also have that symbols for protection against the negative energy, evil eye, and etc. But we must understand we are all people and certain things overlap and intervene. But vampires, and werewolves, Wendigo or the shapeshifters are really something that's been running around Europe, my friend, for quite a while. And the truth, what is, there's many victims today. There were many victims in the past. And it seems like it's coming back more and more.
It's probably not anything recent either. I mean, just because we don't have really good, keep in mind how hard it was to get somebody to document something in old Europe before there was a printing press. It was very expensive to make manuscripts. So maybe just because the village down the road had a couple people eaten by a werewolf, that wasn't worth making a manuscript about. But if you go back far enough to where this actually was going on, like in China, China's got stories about all the same kind of stuff going on way before it was happening in Europe. And again, these seem to be like universal folklore. You can go just about anywhere on Earth and you can find stories about shapeshifters, you can find stories about vampires.
Yes. And as much as we think the werewolves, vampires, shapeshifters are the legends, and they went through the horror movies, stories, and cult books, the fact is they're still here. And they're part of this world, and they've been part of this world for quite a long time. And another thing, I want to mention the gentleman by name Jur Grando Arlilović. So 1579 to 1656, region of Istyria was reported to have attacked by the werewolves and terrorizing this village and villages around for over 16 years after his death. Eventually, he got caught by the locals, and he was caught that he even went further than that area. He went through Moldova, he went through Bulgaria, and was all over. And what happened as he got caught in the middle of the night. Basically, they cut his head off, and again, they did a blessing of the resting place, and the priest was there, and etc. They actually did see that this gentleman did do the shape shifting, and he was already dead for 16 years. Imagine how crazy that is. And this is actually a written fact in a history, ladies and gentlemen. You can find this. So this is a mystery story. It's not like a legend. It's not. It's proven fact that it's recorded that happened.
Can you imagine if he had been around a few years earlier when Uncle Vlad was around? Because Uncle Vlad would have went hunting for him. And he wouldn't have put a stake through his heart. He would have put it right up his ass.
Oh, you're making me funny. And many people don't know, but in Latin, lycanthropy is a meaning of individual changing from one shape, shifting to another. And it's been written inside of the Vatican in many of their teachings and teaching of the religion and beliefs for thousands of the years. So it's not a secret. It's been part of this world for a while.
Very creepy stuff.
But it's true, and if, for example, if we're talking about the werewolves, and if we're talking about the vampires, and if we're talking about the shapeshifters, wendigos, I personally started digging more and more about this when you and I decided. I knew a lot, but I wanted to know more and more because, like you see, I'm raised by it. Even if I'm here, my culture and my tradition stayed on, and I'm very proud of that. So the truth, what is, shapeshifters that you guys have here, like in a Skinwalker ranch, we have Wendigos, Frog Ranch, etc. By many different kind of Aboriginal people. I think they're nothing more than just the wizards that we had in Europe, and we just probably call them in a little bit different way.
They have a different name, exactly. The Navajo, which I have a friend of mine that's Navajo, he's Professor Caveman. He's been on my show quite a few times. He's been up here to Montana Bigfooting with me.
Wonderful.
And he was telling me that part of the reason that they were doing that is because for protecting their people. Because the Navajo don't live in tribal villages. They're spread out all over the place. Everybody's got their own little house, miles from anybody else. So when a neighboring tribe wants to come in raiding, there's nothing to stop them. They just go, first family, kill them. Right over to where the next family is, kill them. Right over to the next one is, kill them. What stopped them was at night, the Skinwalkers would show up. And then they'd have a real bad time of it. And if any of them survived, they'd leave the next day. So that's what got them to decide not to go into Navajo territory and raid them. And if you ever look at where the Navajo reservation is, you might notice that the Zuni reservation is in the middle of it. In fact, it's surrounded by it. The Navajo are their protectors.
Oh, very interesting.
They're, according to the Navajo, they're kind of like the Zuni are like the Jedi Knights. They're like the super good guys, and the Navajo are just their henchmen that keep all the bad guys, the Sith, from getting in and killing them.
Oh my God! And if you look at it, if we are talking about, like you're saying, the Navajo did it for protection. The truth, what is, some of these, we can say the wizards or the people that didn't usually use this craft, they did use it for protection. Because,
and here's another, wait, before you go on, sorry to keep interrupting. Ahead, yes. Here's another example of how they were using it. When there was somebody that was like really deathly ill and they needed a special preparation, like, oh, we need this herb from way up in the mountains 40 miles away, and we need this other thing from over here. Well, then one of them could shapeshift and they could go get all of these things they needed right away. See? And this was like one of the positive benefits, plus the chasing your enemy away thing. The problem is, in order to get these powers, they have to do some pretty despicable stuff. And at that point, you're kind of evil anyway. And so, and this stuff is actually going on. There was a court case just a couple of years ago where somebody claimed that a skinwalker was trying to curse him and kill him.
Yeah.
And they took it very seriously because they know it's real down there.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Europe, some of the families that were really rich. So we're talking about the families that they had lots of properties. They had their own, we can almost say, like a castles, and they were keeping, let's say, other villagers, under their foot. They would usually have, well, I know it's going to sound crazy, 1 or 2 werewolves. And they'll be member of their families. And the reason why, because they will be the one controlling them, letting them in and out to control the village and spread the terror. So that was another thing that was basically done. And that's why for some movies you see, oh, there's this beautiful castle, everybody is rich and this person, or sometimes they would harass the people and then the locals will go and ask the wizard, or like you guys have a medicine man, that would be like a wizard, or the witch in the village or a little bit further on. They would give her the gifts, and she would do the spell for usually one member of the family. As she does do the spell for one member of the family, he would be cursed to become a werewolf, and then become this horrible creature, and that would be the revenge of the villagers over to that basically last tale, what would be basically a richer level of the families that are living around. So there is.
Do you think that's the origin point for it? Because I keep running into that over and over again, that unlike some of these movies that make it out to be, there's some kind of a blood disease that makes you into a werewolf. And you get bitten by a werewolf, you turn into a werewolf. And no, it's all a curse.
No,
and it's not necessarily a good curse either. There's really old folk song up in Scandinavia, and actually a couple other modern bands have redone versions of it. And in the story, there's this woman and there's this evil witch that wants to seduce her little brother, who's, by the way, underage. Yeah. And in order to get her out of the way so that she can have her way with the little brother, she throws a curse on her and turns her into a werewolf. Mm-hmm. And then she does her evilness with her little brother and stuff. Yeah. Yep. And when the little brother makes the witch pregnant, and the end of the song, the pregnant witch is going across the bridge, and the older sister that she had turned into a werewolf is waiting under the bridge, jumps up on the top, rips her off the horse, and tears her brother's offspring out of the witch's womb and kills her. Wow. So yeah, they have really pleasant folk songs in Scandinavia. But again, this goes back to great subject matter. They were writing metal lyrics before they knew there was such a thing as heavy metal. But the point here being that this is all based on the traditional type folklore, and just as much as you had it way down there in Southern Europe, they had the same thing up there in Scandinavia.
Oh yeah, it was
you could get cursed, that would turn you into a werewolf.
Yeah, they had it in United Kingdom. So there's many werewolves cases in the United Kingdom. There's many in Italy. There's in Greece. There's in Portugal, Spain. So it's all around Europe. So it's not just localized to one area. And after that, it seems like that area mostly did stay under that curse even today. And the reason why I think is because people continue that tradition and that heritage and the culture and keeping out with basically ancient practice. While in many of the Western, part of the Europe, much more was erased as the time was passing. But if you take, for example, Ireland and, what is the cradle of paganism inside of the Europe, it's actually full of the different kind of stories and different kind of creatures. So as we go deeper inside of there, there was werewolves, there's vampires, but nothing coming from Transylvania and Dracul coming to seduce Mina and stuff. It was basically their own local.
No, Transylvania was the only place in Europe that was squeaky clean, that didn't have any vampires or werewolves, because Vlad had all of them impaled.
Exactly, they were all chained up. I love how you're joking, but that's the truth. That's the fact. But just like many people don't know, but if you think about Germany has lots of ancient tradition and ancient culture even today. We have a Black Forest. Black Forest is full of the magic and many different creatures.
Black Forest is the one place in Europe where, if you ask me, do you think there's actual, not shapeshifters, but dogmen living in Europe? Black Forest.
Yeah, it's possible.
I have a friend that had a friend that was living right on the edge of it, and she got pictures of them peeking in her picture window.
I was going to say that, because the truth what is, many people are saying that there is a dogman, not a skinwalker or a werewolf, that there is a dogman inside of the Black Forest. You must understand, ladies and gentlemen, Black Forest in Germany was one of the, and at that time before the Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Bavaria was some of the powerful, very strong kingdoms, and they had a trade, bringing people in and out, picking up the culture, traditions, and the heritage. but also because of so much of the craft that was done inside of that area, I think the portals are open, and that's why we do see the dogmen there. Because many people report the dogmen inside of the Black Forest. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, and Black Forest isn't one of those places that gets a lot of travel in it too. And the Germans have this taboo about going off trails for some
Mhm.
weird reason.
Yes,
And most people underestimate how much forest there is in Germany. They're one of the few European countries that really
yes,
fastidious about keeping as much forest as they possibly could, which includes the Black Forest, which has never
Mhm.
been cut down.
No,
There's still original forest there.
yes,
Think about that for a minute. Whatever was there thousands of years ago could still be there.
yes,
And
yes.
then there's the other weird thing about the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest when the Romans decided that they were going to teach those darn Germans a lesson once and for all. And all the Germans teamed up and taught them a lesson. There's an interesting story that goes along with that, that one of the reasons they were successful is because they enlisted the aid of everybody they could get, not just all the German tribes, but the forest people too. And
Yes.
they told the forest people if they joined with them that the forest people could have the forest forever
Hmm.
after that point, like
Yeah.
the Black Forest that's still standing.
Yes. And the there's in Europe we do believe in forest people, and we do believe in banshee. You guys call it a banshee, but we call it a vila or vila varola. So there's different kind of names for different kind of areas. So they're
The
actually
Leshy, a little bit further
yes,
east,
yes,
same thing, forest people. But some of
yes.
this stuff like the Leshy and the Green Man and the
Yeah.
Woodwoes and all that, they're talking about Bigfoot.
Yeah, yeah, and now recently, Europe is starting actually to report the Bigfoot, Duke. I know we are discussing the dogmen, werewolves, skinwalker, shape-shifting, but there's also, I'm going to mention that many people are now in Europe reporting more and more sightings of a Bigfoot. And mostly when I was a child, I'll be honest to you, before I came to Canada when I was 14. Most of the time we would watch the documentaries from United States, and we would see, the werewolf was here in Montana or in California and whatever. I remember I was very little, and it's quite interesting to see, but they never show any in the Europe. But now the documentaries and even reports are coming on that the Bigfoot is, showing up in the Europe. So
There's some decent video leaking out. They got some pretty good video from the Tatra Mountains in Poland, for
Mhm.
example. And
Yes,
yes, there are sightings popping up, but why is that? Is it because the Bigfoot are appearing there? No, they've always been there.
yes.
People have just become aware of it. And now they're starting to watch these TV shows going, oh, so that's what a Bigfoot looks like a half a mile away when you're trying to zoom in on it. And they're driving in a tramway through Switzerland. They're looking up on a hill going, that looks just like that thing on that TV show. We don't have Bigfoot over here, do we? Uh,
and that's I love your humor. I swear to God, you always make me laugh, and I enjoy doing the shows with you. And the truth, what is, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what's happening, because they were more kind of, let's say, tied up to the werewolves or vikodlak or stirgoi, to vilas and many different kind of creatures, forest people. But now, knock knock, there's one more thing to add. There's a Bigfoot. So personally, I do think that, werewolves, like you're saying, are shapeshifters, and they've been always part of the Europe, and they will always be there. Just like we have Wendigos and the shapeshifters in the North America, in Canada, in Europe, and even in Mexico and further on, because of the tribes that were capable and still doing their own traditions. I know this is going to sound scary, you guys, but I do believe even now in Europe that we do have some of the very strong, we can say, people that practice some of that dark magic, that are capable of shape shifting and doing the things that are not so pleasant.
yes, we call them the World Economic Forum. As far as that goes, wherever humans go that have the same cultish tendencies, this whatever ancient black magic it is that they're practicing, that's able to produce these things, curses of werewolves, or actual risen from the dead vampires and stuff like that. It always goes back to black magic. And what's the homestead of black magic? Well, it's the Church of Satan. And if you go and look at what they're up to, they actually have split denominations. And one of them is a werewolf church and one of them is a vampire church.
Yeah.
So guess where this stuff is coming from, kids?
There you go. Yeah, it's pretty, in one way, I know everybody is free to believe whatever they want, but I would just be very careful in what I'm entering or what I'm connecting myself to, because what's going to happen, it's not going to just affect me, it's going to affect generations and generations after. And that's another thing when you're talking that I want really people to know. Werewolf and vampirism is not a disease. So it's not like, I bite somebody and tomorrow they're going to become a werewolf and they're going to become a vampire. That's totally a lie. The truth, what is, it doesn't get, transferred with the blood. It's actually transferred by the curse, by the black magic, done by the people that know the dark craft. The only way to become a vampire, it's actually if that undead soul that it's already dead takes that basically dead soul and allow them to take their own blood, as basically feeding them that it's almost like a transfusion to feed them with that dark energy. But nobody ever, because was bitten by the vampire, did rise up again, like in Hollywood. Actually 99% of those children and most of the ladies and some young boys that were sheep keepers, they were always found dead. Nobody was ever left alive. Nobody ever raised from the casket and fly around like a bat, and had eyes on top of the head. It just like you see in the movies, far away from it. And for the werewolves, like I'm saying, it's a curse. It's also connected to, just like we have Navajo, we have Apache, Nakota, OGB, and the list goes on. Alaskans, many different kind of tribes. I'm very connected to many tribes, and I know a lot about Aboriginal culture. So it's the same with European wizards, we can say. They're capable of doing this shape-shifting, and as they do it, they are the only one who are capable of spreading this werewolf thing, but not because, this one attack this one, you're going to now become a werewolf, fly around, and it's going to be like a Hollywood movie, and the guns are flying, and everybody, and you're climbing on the ceiling, and I start laughing. It's quite entertaining. I love it. You can take popcorn and enjoy it. But
can you imagine if a vampire bit a werewolf and then it turned the werewolf into a werewolf vampire? So it's like a werewolf with bat wings flying around, howling and attacking and stuff.
Sometimes I love it because it's a good entertainment. Like I'm saying, it's a great thing to have fun with. And that's what Hollywood is for. It's entertainment, and it's there to entertain us. That's the word for it. But it's far away from the history, from tradition, from originality. Here and there, we get a true story once in a while said to us, but most of the time, it's fake, and it's pretty funny. But yeah. And sometimes these kids, like you're saying, unfortunately, they end up in the Church of Satanism, that it's now a legal religion all around the world, mostly, even here in Canada. What's okay, I'm not here. It's just not my practice, and I wouldn't believe in it. But if you have somebody, I will be really careful what I'm getting involved into, because I will just tell you one word, very important. Devil never sleeps, and what he gives, he wants 3 times more back. And that's the rule.
Yeah, and what he gives you is like a milk dud. It looks all yummy and tasty and on the outside, but on the inside, it's poison.
Yeah, even the one that they did, like they did these werewolf things in Europe, many of these people end up in a very horrible, situations. They, for example, end up being killed very brutally and tortured. Their family members after that, they had to go in exile. Even if they never did anything, they were prosecuted. The houses were burned. And even today, in a village, if somebody is accused, and let me tell you guys, I would like one day, Duke, when we come back, because I have a mission. I'm going to do research these 5 days and go deep into the Rockies, that we do maybe a show on a black magic and something that is called Romanian Vlasi. That's the strongest, powerful black magic and the craft in Europe. And they even say that it's stronger than voodoo themselves. There's even a movie called Black Wedding. And the reason why it's called, because that person actually just committed a crime because was under the spell. And the whole movie is totally a truth. So you guys can find it, and it's called a Black Wedding. And you will see that it's actually a true story. They will tell you it's based on a true story that happened in 2012 or 2013. All this massacre, because so I can explain exactly how this magic is even stronger than the voodoo. That's how powerful it is. So when you're entering in something like these people that turn into werewolves, they turn into vampires because for their power, for life forever or whatever, actually after that they lost their lives, they lost their livelihood. The families prosecuted. Many of them end up, because of the cursing people, they end up giving birth of very children with genetical disorders because of the negative energy going towards to that birth mother. And list goes on, Duke. It's horrible.
Do you think that's where the legend of the changelings came from?
Yes, I do believe in that. And for example, as somebody who does do a deep research into the ancient craft, symbology, and things like that, I think that's very connected. And I believe that, werewolves, skinwalkers, vampires, Nosferatu on Latin, or lycanthropy, what is on the Latin for werewolves, what it means, the shapeshifters. And they exist in many books inside of the Vatican, but, that's a hush thing. Because do you know that Vatican does have a special priest, even up to today, that they're actually only studying how to do the exorcism?
Now we know they've got a secret force of werewolf commandos. They don't want to let the rest of the world know about.
Yeah,
but anyway, getting back to one important point that you made that you just kind of zoomed right past, and I think we need to go back and stress a little bit. And that's that these things originate from curses, and whether the curse is thrown on you or you bring it on yourself because of your involvement in things that you shouldn't be.
Yes.
Can have long-term ramifications, not just on you, but on your family line for generations later.
Yes. Yes.
Your whole family could be cursed for generations.
Yeah.
Because you have no friggin' common sense.
No. And there's families, I will just say, I'm not allowed to mention the names because I don't have their approval. There is families that I know that are here in Canada, some in United States. I know some in Montenegro. I know some in Romania. So all around that actually, for example, they don't have children because of the curse. So some of them, they're never settled down. Some of them, for example, they have a curse that, there's always illness and they die or they have car accidents by 40. There was a gentleman, I forgot the name of it, but you guys can find it. I'm sure it was on Discovery Channel. The gentleman who actually, he was the only one, and his son, and black magic was cursed, placed upon him. And if he doesn't stop it, his son will die. And that was done because they were keeping these cotton fields. So the ladies and the, forgive me for the word for it, the slaves at that time in slavery, the lady from Haiti put a curse upon his family. So it's even, and he was on the TV trying to find a solution. But I faced many times people that came up to me that I know even from the past as I was a child. And I'm going to be honest to you, they will say, don't even go beside their house, cross the street and go other way. And that's happening today in 2023.
Yeah.
So we are wearing the modern clothes. We are running on computers, texting the cell phones, watching the Madonna, saying hello and pretending. But when it comes to that, don't go near that house, cross the street and continue going over. So
the house is radiating evil. It's like radioactivity. The closer you get to it, the more you pick up. We should have like evil Geiger counters. They would just go, oh, that place is evil. Stay away from there.
Yeah, and I personally, when I feel somebody has a negative energy, or I feel that they have something attached, to themselves, I'm not saying they're werewolves or vampires, far away from it. Hopefully, I always, remove myself, and I always, I have my stones on it. I have my cross. I have my dragon, and of course my protector, my holy thread. But even, let's say, it's just
Geez,
nature.
all I got are just a few rocks that the Bigfoot collected for me. You got all kinds of trinkets.
I should send you some stuff, because it looks like you would need it, especially now that you're gonna go deep into the woods. But
Well, I don't know when the local Sasquatch are your bodyguards. You haven't got really too much to worry about.
but I'm glad that you are doing fine. But regarding the, like you're saying, the negative energy and the curses, this is not, the curse is not just for today in that generation. It's going to go over and over again, and sometimes that cannot be removed until, for example, you have somebody who was a Navajo, pretty great medicine man. Well, it will take you a long time to find another good medicine man who knows how to remove that negative energy that was placed maybe 60,
Yeah.
700 years ago.
And you need another medicine man that's equal in power to him in order
Yes,
to hope to break the curse. Other than that, forget
exactly,
it.
exactly. And it's the same with curses in Europe, curses in China, curses in, I don't know, Australia, New Zealand. It's everywhere, and that's how I'm saying, people, as we are touching this subject on werewolves, vampirism, as much as they are legend, folklores, we watch them a little bit change through the horror movies and the stories. I also want people to be safe, to understand that negative energy does exist, that curses do exist, and it's never too late to be safe, and it never hurts to be safe. You can only feel better.
So, is there any help at all for people that are under generational curses who had ancestors that were
Yes,
dingbats?
yes. When people discuss things like that, and I had more than a couple people joke, I'm not going to mention the names, coming to me. First of all, you must see what kind of curse is it. So is it what is the curse connected to? So is it connected, let's say, I'm going to say a lot of times there's a females involved, they'll say they cannot get married, or the boys are tied, they cannot get married, and or they go bad in a life from one way to another. Sometimes there's constant miscarriages. There's always different kind of things that you can connect. So as you put that in a book or in a piece of paper, and you say, okay, this is what's happening, this is what happened to my grandma and grandpa, this is now what happened to my mother, this is what's happening to me. So as you see that 3-4 generations are repeating, or there's something there, that it's a pattern, then you understand there's something here. So the first thing would be actually to connect to somebody who's a really good spiritual advisor, who can open the cards, do psychic connection, and see. Also, another thing is very good to talk to a priest. So whatever religion you are, the priests are really good, or shaman. So that way they'll be capable of figuring out what type of the curse is it and how can be removed. But it depends what kind of curse is it, and it also depends for how long has been there, and how long, because sometimes they say till the last boy is done. So let's say all the girls are born, but now there's only one boy. Well, that boy then won't live long. He will die, let's say, from some horrible death, and the girls will continue. But that means he will be the last one in the family to carry the last name. So the list goes on. I met many.
Like Philip the Fourth in France, that got that epic Templar curse on him, and the fake Pope and all of his relatives were dead within 3 years.
But the truth, what is, it's all very, very connected, my friend. But there is a hope always, and there is a light always. All what you need to do to actually first sit with your loved ones and say, you know what, you and I need to discuss and be open. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And now you can see that generational thing is repeating, or something is wrong there. Okay, let me see who I can ask for help.
So I would imagine in a lot of cases with something like that, you would need to go back and find out what was the cause originally, and is there any
Yes,
way to offset the damage that was originally done?
yes, yeah. Most of the time there was tying. So tying is actually when you prevent a person for to get married, to have offsprings, to be happy in a life, or basically each relationship will fall apart. And as they get older, you know, nothing will work out. And usually, a lot of times, that's most of the time is done by the females, and they usually like to attack the males. And then for that, you have to figure out why they're tied and how they're tied, and that's when unlocking is done. So it takes about, I must not lie to you, about 2 3 weeks to untie everything, to actually, if you figure out to bring that person back to normal, and then they need to restart their clock to figure out that they're free and they can restart their life over and over again.
Well, that's nice to know. There's at least some hope for them. They don't
Oh,
have to go
yes.
do a kamikaze dive headfirst into a running wood chipper or something. Sorry. Sorry, a little gruesome there, listeners. But anyway, was there anything else we were going to share? We're pretty much out of time here at this point. So,
Yes, I would just like only one thing for people to know. So please, next time when you hear the story about the werewolf, dogman, or, you know, Vikodlak, Stirgoi, know that this is not just a legend. This is not just a folklore. These are the creatures that have been part of this world for thousands and thousands of years, even before the Christianity and even today. Some of them are coming from a different dimensions, and some of them are coming because the ancient craft is used to change from one shift to another. So just dig a little bit deeper and you'll be capable of figuring it out.
absolutely agree 100%. And it's been an actual premeditated plan to inculcate everybody with the spirit of secular humanism and scientism. There is no such thing as the paranormal. The spirit world doesn't exist. All that's imaginary, religion's fake. And so, since you don't know about all this stuff that's actually real, you can easily be victimized by it.
Yes.
So that's why it's important to know about this stuff, because unfortunately, it is real. And even weird things like dragons and stuff, you know, that you're like, yeah, there's no such thing as a dragon. Well, one of my friends told me the other day, hey, you know what my Sasquatch told me? Dragons are real.
Dragons are real.
Yeah.
I believe in dragons, and dragons are real.
Yeah. So, well, that's what the Sasquatch say too. So if the Sasquatch are saying it, I believe them because they don't lie very much. They're not very good at it. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks very much to Danielle Diva for once again taking time out of her busy schedule to come on the show and bring some of that old world religion over here in old time religion from Europe with witches, vampires, werewolves, strigoi, all the fun things that are over there in Europe. And yeah, it's always fascinating because a lot of this stuff all relates to each other. And one of the things you brought up that I was really glad that you did was the blurring of the lines between the vampire and werewolf legend. Because there's more than one place in Europe where they seem to be like confused with each other.
Yes.
Like at some point, the locals were like too drunk and they were telling a vampire story and it turned into a werewolf story or something.
Yes.
And yeah, they're not the same thing.
And I want to say thank you, Duke, for having me. It's always my pleasure, you know, to be your guest. You are an amazing person, like I'm saying. It's my honor to be here. It's honor to be your friend. And whenever you need me, give me a shout. I'll always find a place for your viewers and for you, because it's an honor to share the time with you.
All right. Well, here, let me give you the public invitation right now that you should come down here to Montana this summer and go looking for Bigfoot with us.
Oh,
because you know we're going to be filming the second episode of Inevitably Finding Bigfoot this summer, and we're going to see who can make it here for the filming of it. It's open invitation, just like it was when we went to Nebraska and had to, you know, go to a state where there's no Bigfoot, and we had 3 whole hours on the ground to try and find a Bigfoot, and yeah, we did. So it's way easier here in Montana, where the place is like, overflowing with Bigfoot. We got so
Yeah,
many
you're
Bigfoot
close to
here.
me. Montana is close to me. Canada and Montana, we are neighbors. You're
Yeah, I
close.
know. You're only like what, 400 miles away from me. It wouldn't take
Yes,
very long to drive down here.
yes, yes.
So let me know when you're coming
I
down.
will let
We'll
you know,
go,
my
we'll go
friend.
out. We'll
Thank
film
you.
an episode of my show out in the woods, and y'all can see her running around chasing Bigfoot around the woods.
Thank you very much. I think that'll be quite interesting and quite fun. I will try my best, and will be my honor, to be there. And thank you for the invitation.
Well, you're very welcome. It would be great to get you here. I know I've got some repeaters too. Keith Crabtree, the guy that wore the suit in The Legend of Boggy Creek, is coming back again this summer. And I also know that Kelly Shaw from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch is going to be up here, and a couple other people that I know that are pretty big name Bigfoot researchers. And if I can get them to all show up at the same time, that'll make for a cool episode
Oh yeah,
of inevitably finding
it'll be
Bigfoot.
fun.
And of course, last time we had Christy for our female member of the team, and she isn't going to be able to make it up here this summer. So if you can get down here, then you could fill in for her.
Okay, I'll try my best.
One
I'll
female
try my
member of
best.
the team. And we don't need a Doubting Thomas like that weird Renee guy that was on Never Finding Bigfoot.
Okay.
All right, everybody, be nice. You know what the rules are. Listen to them, follow them implicitly, and have yourself a great week until next show. So make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.